All right. Um, Daniel, would you like to share screen? I can make you a co-host here.
Yeah, can.
Okay, done.
Yeah, just do the entire screen. Um, can you all see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Um, Mahalo folks for the introduction. Super cool to hear what everyone's working on, all the different backgrounds. And mahalo Anna for inviting me to the space. To share with you folks kind of about us and what we do and the importance of soil testing. So a little background on myself. My name's Daniel Richardson, originally from Oahu, Pearl City side. I got my undergraduate and graduate degree from UH Manoa in the field of soil science, soil microbiology, and soil health. And since then have had about a decade-ish of experience working in Hawaii's uh, agricultural and agricultural science sector as a farmer myself for a number of years, as a researcher, as a hole digger, basically the entire spectrum. Um, and so I'll kind of start this first slide with a couple thoughts on why soil testing and understanding the metrics of a space are important. And so, um, we all, being gardeners and farmers and scientists and folks that work with Aina, we all kind of undergo the practice of kilo the space. You're observing over time, you're making judgments based on those observations. Are these plants doing well in this soil, in this space? The weather patterns that come through. And so we at Makali'i Metrics kind of view data through that lens. It's uh, another way of kiloing your space, because that is data as well, the observations you make over time. And so this is just to add to those observations, definitely not replace. You folks, as the stewards of your space, know that space the best. And we at Makali'i Metrics really just want to help support what you know, what you've seen, and ideally, soils data can help do that. So it adds to the kilo practice. At the more scientific fundamental level, when we break down like the elemental compositions of the soil or plant tissue or something, you can kind of see what might be sufficient, what might be deficient. Um, a lot of times we identify spaces where folks have been adding and adding, and through the metrics, we can say like, hey, you can do a couple rounds of planting, potentially without adding anything. And so that helps the bottom line. And then on the other side, if folks are seeing plant health concerns in their space, they may be deficient in something elemental. And so that's where we can provide consideration, supplement, provide some trial recommendations, and maybe help yield or plant health or soil health in the other direction, adding versus subtracting. And so these metrics can help dial in on that front. And then bigger picture, each of these spaces, especially the community garden spaces, they're situated in different ahupua'a around Oahu. And so those spaces have a native soil series that was generated over time by certain weathering patterns, certain lava flows, certain topography, geography, all of that. And so one thing I always find really interesting is like how we compare the practices that we've implemented in a space to the native soil series, um, and how it might differ, and how that native soil series might complement somebody's initiatives in that space. And so again, bigger picture metrics can and some background about the soil series in that space can really help increase and further one's relationship with their Aina. It just opens up a world to kind of speak to the soil, understand what's going on in a little more in depth. So with that said, we kind of were founded in 2023, project management, sweat equity, all with the vision of starting our own analytical space here in Hawaii. Because prior, if you wanted to get soil metrics or agricultural metrics, plant tissue, folks had to send those samples to the continent. And being from here, being Kanaka, all of that, there's such deep roots in the history, the culture, and the geography of Hawaii. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be like a leader in this space. And so with that vision, we established a local lab here. It is up and running. We're open for business and excited to speak with folks like yourself who want to learn more about their spaces. And this is not an AI image or anything. This is our real lab space, downtown Honolulu. And so a little bit more about our vision right now. We've touched on some projects that can hit all three parts of our vision, but ideally, we just opened this space a month ago, officially launched the lab space, and we're kind of in this stage right here where we're measuring the soil and the elements within. Ideally, if we can create a large enough database and with the tools available today, we might be able to increase turnaround times or decrease rather, increase efficiency and build some models that are able to predict parameters in the soil based on ratios and stuff like that. And so we've done that with a couple projects as well. And then our partnerships with the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, with Purple Mai'a, we really want to, where this information is offered to us, get into a space where we can integrate the place-based we call it like kind of the original hard drive, the mele, the oli, the mo'olelos of that space. All of that is data. The wind names and the rain names of that space over millions of years, a few million years, even a few thousand years have weathered that soil and created that soil series in that space. And so when we're measuring things like iron and aluminum in the soil, we're kind of measuring these weathering patterns that are attributed to those rain names and those wind names of that space. And so that's just one small example of how we might incorporate that pre-contact data to data that we're measuring in our lab. And I'll kind of end with this slide before I introduce our website, which is, Hawaii in such a small space, even the island that we're on, the island of Oahu, we have like a global amount of soil diversity in such a small space because of that weathering that I'm talking about. The different geography, the different topography has all gener generated these different soil series. And so again, I'll repeat, there's no reason that Hawaii should not be a leader in this space. We're working in such a beautiful natural laboratory, both geographically and culturally, and that all feeds into the vision we have at Makali'i Metrics. So with that, I will kind of show, hold on, let me see where my website is. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. So if you are interested more in what we do and how to get in touch with us, you can visit our website anytime, makali'imetrics.com. From here, you can order a test. If you click this button, it will forward you to a contact form. You can also email us directly, call me directly. This is my number. If you want to talk stories about your soil, about projects you want to ideate, all of that kind of stuff. But this is our website, a little background about who we are, what we do, and why we exist. And then our capabilities page, you can kind of see what types of things we measure in the soil and the equipment that we use to do it. So this is meant to be kind of like a virtual lab tour, what equipment we're using. And if you do decide to send a test through our space, another pain point that we're seeking to address with Makali'i metrics, because like I mentioned, I'm a farmer myself by background. And so when I would do projects or test my soil, um, or even large scale projects, right? I have like hundreds of soils and trials surrounding differences in those soils. Every time I would send it to labs, continental labs, they would send back kind of like a PDF or a CSV. I would be responsible for keeping track of those, labeling things appropriately, and then analyzing my data and developing my own considerations for what that trial meant. And so that's one pain point we are aiming to address with our dashboard. And so if you send us a soil, we'll report your data. We'll give you a login, and that's where you would click here, enter your username and password, and it would pull up a dashboard kind of like this. And so where the location is offered, we'll provide you some background on your soil series. And that's where we would compare your data to that native soil series, whether you're planting directly in the ground or whether you're planting in garden beds on top of that space. Um, it's important to us that, we offer that context to each of the folks that are testing through our space. But totally understand it, this data is private and all of that. So if folks don't want to tell us where they're planting, where they're sampling, that's okay too. Um, and so we would organize your soil samples by date. And this is what you would see. These are all the elements that we measure in the soil, and we kind of color code them to let you folks know that, things might be getting out of range one way or the other. They might be too concentrated and at risk of toxicity in your soil. If copper is too high, it can create toxicity in your plant tissue, and maybe the plants won't be as healthy. Again, if it's too low, we want to flag that in red as well and let you know, maybe you gotta introduce some nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. And so we want to make this kind of actionable as soon as you see it. What steps can you consider, and what trials might be available to you to kind of address the deficiencies or excess nutrients in your space? And we provide some of those. It's always up to the steward what they want to implement in their space, but um, we always love having that conversation with folks if they want to undertake trials, um, continue testing to see if those trials are effective and how they're impacting their soil health and their plant health. And so we will provide this report, um, and we're always available to talk stories about what that means, etc. And I'll go back. I want to highlight the historical trends. Um, and so give me 1 second. So view historical trends. This is what, if you had sampled the same space twice, um, you could view how, and you made a change from the first sample to the next. Maybe we ideated a trial together, you implemented it, gave it some time to work its magic, and then you test it again. And these are all example farms, random data. So some of this was just like blurbed into the blank cells, may or may not make sense, but this is kind of the view of what you would see if you undertook a trial and kind of sampled a couple times in the same space. Ideally, we could capture those changes and then show how things, that may have started out of range would be hopefully being guided back into range where the soil and the plants are going to be healthy. Um, and so with that, I will pause there. I can leave this screen up and that was more or less what I had to present and would love to hear if folks have questions, comments, concerns, all of the above.
Daniel, I put it in the chat when you were talking about the wind and the rain, and as you know, um, we introduced the Hawaiian way where we are from, and the wind and the rain. I've never really thought about introducing it as a soil, but that's why I was wondering if there is Hawaiian names for the soil. Because when you put it up, I didn't know if there was some Hawaiian name that was related to the soil or something else.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the soil series that are here in Hawaii, they do a lot of them do have Hawaiian names, but it is because they were named for the place that they were originally identified. And so you have something like the Hanalei series or the Molokai series. Um, and so those spaces and those soil varieties, like Hanalei series was first identified in Kauai, but we have a bunch of Hanalei series over here on Oahu. And so the properties are just so similar in the soil mineralogy and everything. But those are all named by federal agencies, the USDA, NRCS. They did this huge survey effort between like the 40s and the 70s, and they were going like meter by meter, digging down, looking at the clay profiles of all these soils, and then naming them as such. And so there are places where the name of that soil is true to place, but at the same time, there are those that kind of are scattered around. Um, and then at the same time, there's like a Pearl Harbor series, there's the Tantalus series, and I know that there are some initiatives now to kind of rename something like Tantalus series to Ualaka'a, the original name of that place. So to long-winded answer, but there are Hawaiian names for soils, but not necessarily in the traditional sense that you might be thinking.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that. Is there a source or resource that you would recommend? Because you know that's what we've been doing is researching each of the places for our land acknowledgement, and when we go and introduce, I don't know if you're familiar, but Native Hawaii Place of Learning is one of the UH strategic plans. So that's what I was wanting to get to that source, if you're able to direct us.
Yeah. There's an app. It's pretty cool. It's called the Soil Web app. Um, Lives on your phone, and as long as you have reception, you can click the button on there, get soil data, and it will tell you the series that you're currently standing on. Um, and it will give you a little information about that series. And so, let's say you click that app and you show that you're standing on the Wahiwa soil series, then you could look that up, even just Google search, and then these are like the comprehensive backgrounds on that soil series. They'll tell you, how deep each horizon is, a little bit about the weathering. Um, and a lot of times when they talk about use in vegetation here in Hawaii, they trend towards sugarcane, pineapple. And so that's another thing I know that's being worked on right now is like what were the kupuna crops that were grown in that space. Um, I will say though, this is not a perfect tool in terms of the naming and the crops that were used, but uh, I will say that this effort done by NRCS back in the 60s or whatever was extremely granular, extremely in depth, and they did a very good job of describing the soil properties. They may not have been working with information that was available to them, like what crops should be grown in that space, etc. So this is a good resource. I do want to mention that, and we use it all the time. One of my jobs in the sugarcane fields on Maui was to ground truth these soil series by soil series. So um, I actually had to dig, you know, 0 to 6 inches, 6 to 12, and audit these surveys that were done in the 60s, and they were pretty dead on almost every time, which is pretty cool to do.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Oh, Anna, you might be
There's
muted.
another question in the chat. Um, do you provide guidance to clients on how to improve soil health when a soil test shows certain elements are out of range?
Yes, absolutely. Um, we always put that in the considerations. We'll let you know what is out of range, and ideas, thoughts, trials on how to guide it back or put the right nutrients in the right spaces, etc.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering about that last page before the ones where you showed the change over time, where it does show you the different colors of I think it was the other one before this one with the yeah, the deficiencies if you click on one of the reports. Yeah, the different colors. So you show critical means critically high or low.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would flag it, and then we would discuss it in the report below. So, like if your copper was critically high, it would be in red, and we would mention that in the report below, so you would know if it was high or low.
So for the testing, would we send you a sample of our soil or you would come out and or with yeah, how would that work?
Yeah. So either one, get in touch with us depending on how. So we do sampling services. If the projects kind of grow beyond what we're able to do day to day, we can keep in touch about that. But typically, people will send us a sample in the mail or come to our lab space and drop it off. We're right in town. And so if folks are, sampling from the North Shore or something, it might be more more easy to just mail them. But that's where you could get in touch with us via the contact form, whatever you prefer, drop off, mail in, or if you have a project that's going to like require pretty continuous sampling or some thoughtful sampling, like if you're working in 10 acres and you want to talk about what that space what your goals for that space are, what soil series you might be operating on. Um, yeah, I think it would start with that contact form, and then we can kind of guide into what makes the most sense.
Mahalo. Anna, maybe we can get all the county gardens tested.
I was definitely interested when I got to have the pleasure of doing a quick, not quick, a really solid tour of the lab. And one of the kind of exciting research questions that came to mind is what is the diversity, what is the soil health generally of community gardens or gardens where there's a lot of plant diversity because it's not a monocrop. It is not only a mono farmer, you know what I mean? It's like tons of people trying different things in space and time because of the turnover. So I'm curious also about testing community gardens and maybe as a comparison to other kinds of gardens or other kinds of food producing projects. Yeah, in different spaces. So keeping that in the back of my mind, if anyone knows a student who would like to take on a project like that, could be a really good pairing. Linda, yeah, do you want to share your question loud? You're on mute. I can read it out for you. If your soil has been fertilized, how long should you wait to have it tested?
What happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it depends on what you would use to fertilize. So there's synthetic salt-based fertilizers. They're immediately soluble. Um, you could test, within a couple days after applying that. It's supposed to be immediately available. But if you're using something organic, compost, or like chicken manure, it helps to wait a few weeks before
Mhm.
testing again, because a lot of those nutrients are locked up in the material itself. If it's cells or whatever, it requires some microbial decomposition um, before it becomes plant available. So kind of depends on the application, and that's definitely something we can assist with as well.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
I have a question. My home garden, roughly maybe 20 by 20. And a lot of our community gardens are roughly, 100, 200 square feet. So if you were taking a sample from a general garden plot, um, where do you take it from?
Yeah, that's a question that comes up a lot. So you definitely want to take it from where you want to plant your target crops, and it helps to composite it a little bit. And so, like, if you're talking about a 20 by 20 plot, your row might be 12 feet long. Helps to kind of take maybe three samples along that row and mix them together in a bucket. And then that's where you would bag it and send that in, just so it's a little more representative of that space. Um, Another thought, expanding outwards, if you're 10 acres or so, that's where multiple samples will likely be necessary. I mention this example all the time. We got some data that just for pH, the pH was fine, but the steward was having issues in one part of their space, growing onions, and um, when we looked at how they were sampling, they were doing multiple samples, but compositing them all. And when we actually like split the data in that space, we found that even though we were measuring the pH as like 6 or 7 over here, which is perfectly fine, half of their field was like pH 4 or 5, and the other half was like 7, 7.5. And so by mixing them together, you're kind of losing that data. And so that's more relevant for bigger spaces, but also, if you're planting different crops in different rows, those might be two separate samples as well, because, something like kale is going to require and uptake nutrients differently over time than something like colo or tomatoes might. And so with different species in different rows, you might be altering the nutrient concentrations in those rows in different ways.
No, that's really great to know. Yeah, I think in gardens, there's always a lot of our community gardens, there's a lot of variety, but if you were really trying to narrow in on your bean bean crop or your, tomato crop, you could really dial it in and figure out what would be the best. Okay, that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. And that's another good piece of information for us if you folks want to offer it, is like, hey, this sample was taken from beans, this sample was taken for tomatoes, including that in the label, or even, shooting us an email through the contact form, like, hey, I sent you 3 samples. Here's the labels and here's what we're growing. Um, it helps us really target those considerations a little better.
Any other questions for Daniel? If not, then, well, I'll just say thank you so much for attending today's call and giving us a really good overview of what you offer and the importance of doing this. Just, yeah, being available to answer questions is really great. And having your contact information on your website, I assume people can follow up with that. In fact, in an email after this call, I can include the link to the website, as well as that soil app that you mentioned. I think that's a great resource. So I'll be doing that. And we'll spend the last 10 to 15 minutes with member updates. But yeah, just thank you again, Daniel. You're welcome to stay on, but just want to mahalo you.
Mahalo. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, mahalo. Thank you so much.
All right, so for the last little bit here, I wanted to share some updates that others have provided me to share today. So one of them is, you might have seen this flyer before, Kumu'ai, the Kekulunui o Waimanalo food, agri-food, forest, and garden that is growing rapidly and really coming together over in Waimanalo is always looking for volunteers. So they have their monthly work day, the next one being, day is today, 18th, next one being July. Wow, what month are we in? July 12th. We've had Hui Māla convenings and promoted that out there. So it's always a fun time to be like in community with one another. Start time is right at 8 a.m. And goes until about 11:30. I also wanted to share a really relevant grant opportunity for those here who are at the organizational level supporting gardens. It's the USDA Community Food Projects Competitive Grants Program. I'll put that in the chat. It is specifically for community-led food growing efforts. So this can be small scale, right? This could be the community garden. This could be, it's the part of the food system that is less apparent when we're thinking about feeding people, right? Like it's not the big ag, it's community gardens. It could be mobile markets. It could be food as medicine programs. This could be relevant to some people in the call. So I wanted to share that as well. Those are my updates. Does anybody else have things they'd like to share? This could be an opportunity for, like I said at the top, any challenges you're experiencing in your garden, any questions you have that you might want to troubleshoot with the group, or just relevant, exciting news, updates, opportunities. Yeah.
What, Anna, is there gonna be a in-person convene? When's the next in-person convening?
We have to talk about that because I would love for it to be at the Mala at Hawaiian Council in mid-July.
Okay,
Yeah, so
perfect.
let's figure out a day. Also because it will be the anniversary of the loss of our dear Clyde. So I think it would be a really good opportunity to celebrate him and be in the Mala together and see the
Yeah.
garden again after so much time has passed.
Okay, perfect. What date? Looking at July, I just gotta. We have
Let's,
our convention. That's why July.
yeah. Tell me what's best for you. Let's figure it out at our
Okay.
next leadership team meeting.
Okay, perfect. Maybe before the convention and get. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, whatever you think is best.
Roger. That grant, can charter schools participate in that? Because I know they have malas too, and they just got a micro grant for the Nalei Nawal Charter Schools just got a micro grant from us to purchase kupuna crops to plant in their malas or kupuna crops to purchase from farmers and whatnot. But a lot of them have food gardens at their schools.
I think
And
it
this
is
is
available. Yeah.
Kaumeke on the Big Island, on Kauai, Molokai, out in Waianae, Kalihua Krug.
Let's,
Uh,
here, I'm gonna
yeah.
put this in the chat here. See, this is from, who could send me this? I don't remember. I'll follow up in the follow-up email that I always do with more information about this grant. I don't know, I'm not super familiar with it, but I know that there are several calls, several Zoom meetings that will go into detail for those who are not sure, who want to know more and see if it's a good fit for them. I believe charter schools will be applicable because they're, in some cases, yeah, I think private entities are can qualify. So let me send that in a follow-up email. It's ISED is the technical assistance provider, and they'll share that kind of information at, like, they have 4 or 5 different, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Zoom calls to share the information. So lots of
Awesome.
opportunity to learn more.
I do want to share an update of our Native Hawaiian food crop revitalization project. Our first training video draft. I will share my screen.
I have to make you co-host.
Please
now.
let me know if the sound
Hello,
works.
Mike Kako. I'm Kainoa Carlson alongside chef instructor Auntie Tammy Smith. She's been serving our La Hui for decades. Aloha, Auntie.
Aloha e kainoa.
Mahalo
Is
nui
that-
for
is
meeting
that
me
coming
here
from
in
your-
the kitchen. Now, Auntie Tammy and
Can you
I
hear
are
it?
teaming up to deliver
Yes.
insights,
I can
instruction,
hear it, but I don't
and
see it.
inspiration to help you prepare a delicious
You can't
school
see
meal
it?
using
we can only hear it.
traditional Hawaiian.
You're on mute too now.
Can you see that now?
Nope, still no.
Okay.
Is there a link? I can, if you want to put the link in the chat, I can try. Oh, now we can see it.
There we go. Ooh, that was stressful. Okay, let me try again.
Aloha, Mike Kako. I'm Kainoa Carlson alongside chef instructor Auntie Tammy Smith. She's been serving our La Hui for decades. Aloha, Auntie.
Aloha e kainoa.
Mahalo nui for meeting me here in the kitchen. Now, Auntie Tammy and I are teaming up to deliver insights, instruction, and inspiration to help you prepare a delicious school meal using traditional Hawaiian ingredients. Now, this is all part of a program funded by the USDA Food Nutrition Service.
The program is called Kukulu Kaiaulu Aipono, and it supports the use of traditional indigenous foods in the child nutrition program.
And it's right here in Hawaii. This work has been focused on Na Le Na'awau, which is a network of 17 Native Hawaiian focused public charter schools statewide.
And we're excited to share this recipe with the network of schools and the meal vendors that they work with.
I came here hungry, Auntie. What are we cooking up today?
Today we're making ulu corn chowder from prep to service at scale.
It all begins with quality ingredients. Let's take a look at the list. Diced fresh or frozen ulu, breadfruit, chopped celery, chopped raw bacon, peeled and diced potatoes, canned corn, no salt, water, 1% milk, and coarse kosher salt. All right, Auntie, first ingredient for 100 school-sized portions of ulu corn chowder. We need 20 pounds of ulu. What kind do we have?
For today's dish, we have ma'afala, which is the variety that we are using.
Now, how is the ulu going to change once it's cooked?
So when it's cooked, the changing is just the ripeness, the softness of the ulu. For me, it's understanding how do they get to the right stage,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and picking it at the right time.
And this is going to be a good opportunity to involve the keiki or other people to join. Yeah, we need help with the peeling, the cubing. We can teach the keiki knife safety and even portion awareness. Yeah.
And ulu prep is time intensive,
Yeah.
right? It depends, right? And who you get for help. But it's also an educational opportunity to share about what ulu is, and that aligns with all the Aina-based learning, which is grounded in teaching and learning through the land, ocean, the air, and all living things.
Auntie, in a recipe like ulu corn chowder, our keiki are gonna get a lot of good nutrition, yeah? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so basically, like, we start a basic corn chowder. We start with the bacon, adding in celery, we're adding in some no salt corn, and then we adding some potato, but the main ingredient actually for us is our ulu.
Let's expand more on that because that's a superfood in so many different ways and really helps us achieve part of that nutrient analysis. What is that?
So the nutrient analysis is all the measurements of each ingredient. What does it bring to the completed meal, right? But the superfood about ulu is that, it's the food of famine. So ulu trees is abundance, right?
Mhm.
And ulu, when it's ready and it's ready to be harvested, got so much ulu. And so we just relearning about how to process ulu and how to include that in our daily meals.
A recipe like this really aligns with so many of our Native Hawaiian charter schools because every single day these keiki are learning more about the language and the aina and how the two intertwine.
Yeah. So this is the learning opportunity,
Yeah.
right? Between the kitchen and the students and what's going on the aina. And this really reflects their learning. And then we get to serve all of this good food to them. And then they get to know what that taste is.
As a dietitian, I'm taught about calories and protein and carbohydrates and fats. But when we look at food through a cultural lens, we understand that it's about connections. It's about connections to who we are, to our spirituality, to our grandparents, to our genealogical knowledge, to our mo'olelo, to our next door neighbors. All of these connections are important to who we are as a people, how healthy we are as a people. And when these connections are broken, then we become unhealthy. And so making sure that our food connects us to that which is most important to us, most important to help us thrive as a lahui, as a community. Those are the connections and the teaching tools that we need to bring back into the system.
Aloha, I'm Kumu Jazz. I'm a Kumu at Malamohonua. I am here at CCHAR, which is our community partner through the University of Hawaii. And Malamohonua for us is the way we get to enact it is through this idea of heva'a hemoku hemoku heva'a. And hemoku heva'a is the island is a canoe. The canoe is an island. All of those values and all of those lifestyle choices we make that sustained us for thousands of years on an island. All of those, the ways we interact with aina are also the ways we interact with kai.
I feel like super excited and proud to be part of this learning experience, especially like with our after school leadership program. We get to go to the Capitol to advocate for different things, or we get to meet up with different charter schools. So I think it's a really good opportunity.
The different types of food that we're growing is kalo, uala, which is the sweet potatoes. Actually pretty excited to get to eat those things because we're actually helping to take care of them. I came to this school in 5th grade, and before I was in a normal public school, seeing the things that some of the kids would bring to lunch is kind of concerning because they just bring like candy and juice and stuff, and it's like not very nutritious. But things like kalo and ulu, they give you like energy and nutrition that kids our age need.
I mean, historically, we know that our traditional foods, our kupuna foods, sustained a culture for generations. Reintroducing our kids to their kupuna foods is only going to make them, one, healthier. And as healthier humans, they become better students. Really, for us, it just creates the best kind of learning environment for our students.
Aloha, my name is Kaina Makua. I've been blessed to be a part of founding Hui Māla nonprofit, trying to not just farm kalo, but farm people. If we're looking at superfood, everybody, when they hear the word superfood, sweet potato, kalo, and breadfruit, all kupuna crops, and they all serve a purpose. If we're gonna teach these kids that you can eat this, 5% of them are gonna be like, wow, maybe I can be one farmer and contribute to the next generation. Because the kalo and the ways of farming gonna raise these kids up to be such amazing humans. And they're going to help to contribute to this circular ecosystem. So how do we get people buying in? If they hear about the nutritional facts, that's it. If you instill all of these values all the way until they become adults, then they're going to invest one way or another in aina and kalo and our kupuna crops.
Auntie Tammy, this is how I like to learn. With my hands, my heart, and my upu.
That's how I love to teach.
All right, Auntie, I'm excited. We have ingredients over here right now. Walk us through how we're gonna make 100 portions of this, 100 school portion meals for 100 students.
Yep.
You know,
So,
sorry to interrupt, but we
right,
are at the hour and I
start
want to make sure we
prepping,
wrap up
get all
appropriately.
of
Would you mind
needed
pausing it
ingredients,
here?
and then making sure.
Thank you.
Don't
Yeah,
have
that
to
was a great
put
little
each-
It's
intro.
kind
That
it's
was
kind of
with a
long.
recipe like
Yeah, thank you for
things like
sharing
Trying to turn
that.
off the share screen, sorry.
I'm hungry now.
I wish it were ulu season. I mean, I could probably find some somewhere, but I really want some ulu chowder now.
I cannot share the link yet because it's still a draft. It's password protected, so just a sample of what we're working on. And one of the other schools was Kalihua Krug School in Waianae, and they're out farming. I mean, right outside their classroom. It's a part of their curriculum. So building the farming in their school so they can see it, feel it, because a lot of those kids, they either go home to no food or not healthy food, right? And so teaching them at school, about their kupuna crops in their food gardens. So that's why I wanted to ask about that, Grant, but we can talk story later. Mahalo, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rufino. I want to acknowledge that it is over 11, so if you need to leave, no worries. Like I said at the top, I can stay on for another 28 minutes and for any spillover conversation, but it also just one more little quick share and plug. If you are not a member of Hui Māla and want to be on the email list, which is the equivalent of being a member at this point, please fill out the form at huimalai.org or you can use this link, which I can put in the follow-up email. Just a little bit of information about yourself, what you're able to contribute, what's the baseline understanding of the members that come in Hui. And then we'll have this video recording on our website and on our YouTube. I also have this spreadsheet where I'm tracking a list of funding opportunities that are relevant to food gardens. And I will add or I have already added the recent one I just shared about community food projects from USDA in there. And then our next convening, as Rufino made a good segue into, is going to be in person at the Hawaiian Council in Kapolei. More information on exactly when that will be coming soon. All right. Mahalo, everybody, for being here, and I hope to see you again soon.
Mahalo.
Hi, Linda. I see your question in the chat. Yes, Makali'i metrics. I can put it in chat here. Here is their website. Makali'imetrics.com. You're on mute, so I'm kind of guessing what you're saying.
Anyway, thank you, Anna. Really appreciate this. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.